This is Brixton 1981, and this is 2020. It's not hard to see that the same institutional racism faced over 40 years ago is still here today. As part of a project with We Rise Brixton, I was able to make this film on the 1981 Brixton Uprisings. But first, most records of the event, whether books, pictures or news articles, call the events the 1981 Brixton Riots. But it's important to understand why the events in Brixton were not a riot, but an uprising. An act of rebellion against a system that had for decades oppressed and discriminated against the black community. Much of this generation today is facing similar issues with race in Britain and are taking a stand. So what exactly was the 1981 Brixton Uprisings? Between April the 10th and April the 12th, Brixton became a site of uprisings against racial oppression and discrimination. To set the scene, in 1981, under Margaret Thatcher, the social and economic climate in Britain was reaching boiling point. Unemployment and poor living conditions affected many across Britain, but particularly the lower classes. Black working class communities were disproportionately affected by these social economic conditions, and in Brixton, this was clear. One of the many flashpoints leading up to the uprisings was the Cross Massacre. On the 18th of January 1981, at a house party in New Cross, London, 13 black teenagers were killed in a fire that started. The black community were angry, and rightly so. Many felt that the attack was racist, and the lack of justice for the 14 victims fueled more distrust towards the police. This slogan became synonymous with the silence of the general public and lack of adequate response from the police and Prime Minister. In response, the Race Today collective formed the Cross Massacre Action Campaign. The community rallied behind the organisation of this and the National Black People Day of Action March, held on the 2nd of March 1981 in remembrance of the tragedy and its victims. It is remembered as one of the greatest displays of black power in Britain. Just over a month later, in April, Brixton rose up against police oppression. By police oppression, I'm talking about the abuse of the sus laws. Under the 1824 Vangrassy Act, police had the power to stop, search and arrest anyone purely based on suspicion. And as you guessed, this disproportionately affected ethnic communities. For ethnic communities in Lambeth under Operation Swamp 81, thousands of young people were being targeted and arrested purely on suspicion. It was racial targeting, and this only kept building tensions. So, we know about the social political background, but what about the actual uprisings themselves? This is Ralton Road, and this became the front line. On Friday, the 10th of April, 1981, some police officers were attempting to help an injured young black man, but their actions were misinterpreted by passers-by, and so began the uprisings. For 3 days, protesters fought against the police, but symbolically, it was a fight against institutional racism, which spread to other cities like Liverpool, Manchester and Leeds. The Brixton Uprisings must be remembered as an important moment in the British civil rights movement. So coming full circle, in 2020 we were still protesting against racism because not much had changed. So I ask you this, how do we move forward so that my children are not protesting for basic human rights?